Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learning and Mending Post-Human Infrastructure. As we all get settled into our squares for this evening, I'm going to start off with sharing an embroidery of the week. This week, I am actually sharing Cindy Bautista's embroidery, and it is of pollinators and a butterfly and a sunflower. And what I really thought was so charming was it looks like a stained glass window. The way that she used the different shades of purple really pop in this embroidery of the week. Looks like we're all here. So what we'll do now is we'll move into our popcorn introductions where we say who we are, where we're zooming in from our pronouns and what we are working on tonight. I'm Jen. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm zooming in from Studio City. And tonight I am continuing, but made great strides in the last week, my bison from the last series. And I am going to pass it on to Trish.
Thanks, Jen. And I'm delighted to see more of our stitchery showing up on your online web link. And I was particularly pleased to see the bat, but I want to see you raven, so keep doing it. I'm calling in from Palo Alto. I'm about as far as Jen is on my buffalo. I use she, her pronouns. My land acknowledgement is to the Muwekma Ohlone because I'm calling from Palo Alto, and I will pass it on with popcorn to Millie.
Great evening, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Millie, and I will be listening and reading along with everyone. I am currently in Glassell Park on Tongva land adjacent to the Los Angeles River. And I will pass it on to Yeva.
Hi, I am in Glendale. Go by she, her pronouns, and I'm working on this corn, made some progress. I've been avoiding the kernels, but we're gonna have to get there eventually. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it on to Lauren.
I am Lauren calling in from the Metabolic Studio on Tongva Keach Gabrielino land. I go by she, they pronouns. I am working on a buffalo. Just got to the top of its head. And I will pass it to Erin. Erin, there's many Erins here, I think, but Erin Olivia.
Oh yeah, with my cat hair. Hi, this is my first time in this meeting. I think I've joined, so I don't have the embroidery kit yet, but I've been to Metabolic a few times in the past, and hi, I don't know if Emily remembers me at all. Hi, you can call me whatever you like. I'm in Echo Park, and I'm just happy that I was able to join this. And so I'm just here. And okay, so I'm going to pass it to Emily.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for joining us. Emily here, she, her pronouns, phoning in from San Jose, where I'm attending the California Native Plant Society conference, feeling the love of the plant people, the worldwide. And I'm going to be helping out sharing the screen for the reading and sharing the screen for the video. And I did bring my new embroidery kit that Jen hooked me up with when I was out with COVID. And so I'm excited to hopefully sneak in some stitches in between cursor moves on the screen. So I'm just happy to be here with you all. And let me pass it to Stefano.
Hi, Emily. Hi, everyone. This is Stefano from El Sereno, and excited to be here as always, and excited for this new episode as well. And I'll be passing it on um, to Lee Adams.
Hello, I'm Lee Adams, and I'm calling in from Altadena. I use she, her pronouns, and I am working on Misha's exquisite drawing of corn, and I'm playing around with corn silk tonight. Happy to be here. And Ansu, let's hear from you. That didn't work. So Alex, how about you?
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, I'm Alex. I'm calling in from Mar Vista, and I will be working on some embroidery after I do some reading with you guys, and that's what I'll be working. I just started. We'll see how it goes, and I'm gonna pass it on to Kaveh.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Good evening, everyone. Kaveh calling in from Sacramento, California, and in Miwok territory, ancestral lands of the Wilton Rancheria. And tonight, I'm looking forward to following along with the reading, and I'll be sharing some chats to nonprofits or some links to nonprofits in the chat as well, and looking forward to continue our conversation into the chat as well. And I'll pass it on to Jack.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack. I'm here at the historic park in Los Angeles. Going to be listening and getting a bit of nature experience today. Yeah, I've loved the past classes. Excited to hear everyone read. Thanks for having me. That's it. So let's see. I'll pass it to Douglas Lee.
Muted. All right. Hey, I'm Douglas Lee. I'm calling in from the Metabolic Studio on Tongva Land, and I'm just gonna be hanging out with y'all, just checking out this awesome reading. So probably gonna clean up a little bit because my space is a mess, and that's that. And I will pass it on to Andrea.
Hello, Andrea here. I'm calling in from Windsor Square, Los Angeles, California, and I go by she, her pronouns. I will be continuing work on the buffalo and getting more of the background. So, let's see. I'll pass it on to Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I use she, her pronouns. I am over here in Alhambra working on mending one of my favorite shirts that got some holes from perhaps a cat or something. And we're going to be trying to integrate that into something that I can continue to wear. And looking forward to hearing about clay tonight. So I will... who has not gone? Dee, have you gone yet? I'm going to pass it to Dee.
Hi, Derainer Holland calling in from Baldwin Hills, and I go by she, her pronouns, and I am working on this beautiful corn pattern. I haven't gotten very far, but I hope to get a lot done tonight, and I'm happy to be here and to listen in. And I'm thinking it might be time to hand it back over to Jen. Thanks.
Thanks, Dee. And again, welcome everyone to our 9th edition of Learning and Mending Post-Human Infrastructure. This series will explore the commons of soil, the air we breathe, water, sound, and the potency of seed and mycelium networks. It involves letting go of outdated ideas that do not support and serve the life web. As a studio practice, we aim to facilitate this rebound and regeneration. We seek to engender self-propagating and self-generating feedback loops that feed the life web in places that have been ground down to an inert state. Artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy. Post-human is a concept that critiques anthropocentrism and the philosophical branch of humanism, a dominant ethos that has shaped social relations and the way humans relate to non-human worlds for centuries. There is a rich discourse on post-human and post-humanism. Therefore, there are many ways one might define these concepts. Post-humanism pushes back against the centering of human and moves towards a thinking that eradicates hierarchy of being and challenges the life, non-life binary. Post-humanism is an ontological pursuit of what it means to be human, what it means to be non-human, and where these categories rupture and collide. This is a 7-week series and will be facilitated by Millie Mason-Moore, Metabolic Studio Farm Lab Coordinator. We are inspired generalists rather than experts and hope to facilitate an open community dialogue. This series will run each Tuesday, the exception of skipping November 8th, and conclude on November 14th. If you would like to receive an embroidery kit from us, please send your name and mailing address to info@metabolicstudio.org, and I'll put that address in the chat bar. Tonight, we will share our screen displaying this week's reading. Feel free to jump in and read aloud from the text as you feel inspired, as we welcome one and all to both listen and giving voice to the unique texts we share each week. And now I will pass it over to Lauren.
So I invite you to take a minute to settle into your seats. I'm going to read to you today a poem by Joy Harjo called My House is the Red Earth. My house is the red earth. It could be the center of the world. I've heard New York, Paris, or Tokyo called the center of the world, but I say it is magnificently humble. You could drive by and miss it. Radio waves can obscure it. Words cannot construct it, for there are some sounds left to sacred, wordless form. For instance, that fool crow picking through the trash near the coral understands the center of the world as greasy strips of fat. Just ask him. He doesn't have to say that the earth has turned scarlet through fierce belief after centuries of heartbreak and laughter. He perches on the blue bowl of the sky and laughs.
Thank you for taking us on that journey, Lauren. That was very beautiful. Again, welcome back. It's always great to be here with everyone. This series of post-human infrastructure reading selections were collectively chosen by our team at Farm Lab. Last week, we learned about beavers and how they enhance water storage, erosion control, habitat restoration, and much more. Again, just wanted to note, we are inspired and passionate generalists rather than experts on these subjects. This week's reading gives us a personal insight into the culture and traditions of pottery made by famous Native American artist, Maria Martinez. We will be focusing on the processes involved in harvesting clay from the foothills of the Black Mesa when the Pueblo of San Ildefonso still operated without electricity. The reading shares techniques on making Blackware pottery. We will also read an excerpt of making and growing granite and sludge. Here are some guiding questions for our casual dialogue after our reading. All of the things we make wear, work with, come from somewhere and go back to the soil, rivers, atmosphere, and oceans. What materials do you work with? How do these practices give back and replenish the life web? Should you not feel comfortable having a conversation when the time comes, again, just feel free to use the chat bar to add your questions, thoughts, dreams, or resources. Also note, anything added to the chat bar will be included on our Discord Water Community Power. My colleague Matt, who joined us today, will be adding the Discord link to our chat bar. The Discord has been established to continue these dialogues and to open source our collective knowledge. Now, I'd love to introduce my colleague, Alex Tanasi. Alex is an incredibly gifted ceramicist and teacher. He has been part of the Metabolic Studio team for years. He learned how to identify natural clay buried beneath the tarmac and has been using this amazing material to make ollas, or subterranean irrigation pots, seed pods, cups, and much more. Alex, before we begin our reading, can you briefly describe your experiences working with clay?
Thanks, Millie. Kind of cut off in the beginning, but I think I heard what you were saying. Well, my experience with clay, obviously you were saying how I was brought in to harvest it from the studio underneath the tarmac. And that alone was special because that's just very a unique situation alongside the LA River. And thanks to Lauren for bringing me in to have that experience. With that, we really tried to focus on what does this clay want to be, as opposed to just making materials that that you can commonly use. So with that, that's how we came up with making the ollas and sharing that with the community and having them take part of having some of this clay in their hands and really feel a connection to the land. And that's what we really identify with this clay, is to use it in the smartest way possible, knowing that clay will degrade and will decompose and go back into the ground and will be here long after we are gone. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this reading. For one, it has a lot of great teachings in it, but it's a book that at the time, there wasn't anything written like this with this Native American tribe that has done ceramics for years. And, you know, they don't have a way of writing things down, or at that time they weren't writing things down. And so this was a way to publish that. And it was really important at the time, and it still seems to be a very significant book because of that. And not only for the writing, but the photographs. And Maria Martinez really did a great job of being an international star for Pueblo artists. And with those teachings, she's taught her family. And it's much like how we are participating today, using this Zoom platform to learn things with language. So that's some of what I'm bringing today. Other things that I've learned that kind of bring me back to the land source and not a clay source as a material is how it's working as a remediator with soil. And that was a big kind of awakening with working with Metabolic Studio and working with all of you. Just seeing how it has capillary action and how it draws things in. And to me, that's kind of what it wants to be too. Not just a material that you can make, but something that you can use for remediation. I just wanted to make that note. Nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoy the reading. I'll pass it back to Millie, if that's okay.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, Alex. I really appreciate it. Now, without further ado, Emily, will you share the book tonight? Thank you.
Black pottery making involves 6 distinct processes, each one as important as the other. For the finishing product, the first is finding and collecting the clay. Second, forming the pot. Third, scraping and sanding the pot to remove surface irregularities. Fourth, applying the iron bearing slip and brushing it to a high sheen with a smooth stone. Fifth, decorating the pot with another slip. And lastly, the firing. I know that the clay and volcanic ash, or blue sand, as the Indians call it, are gathered now by Santana and Adam in the special place where San Ildefonso Indians have been getting clay for as long as Maria can remember. I had despaired of ever seeing the site.
But one crisp morning, early, when the day was cool and quiet and there was no wind, Adam came into the kitchen where I was drinking my coffee and asked, "Would you like to see the clay? This is a good day." I was almost afraid to reply. But he continued, "Usually we get the clay in October, but it has to be dry. The place is on our reservation, but far from here. Blue sand we have too, but it's hard to get it. We always got it from a nearby pueblo. They used to give us all we want. Now they don't give us much. They charge us, but they have lots of those hills full of blue sand. Come along with us if you wish. I'm excited at the prospect of going for the clay and accept with pleasure." I also tell Adam that his comments on the blue sand remind me of Shoji Hamada, the Japanese living national treasure, who works within a folk tradition in Mashiko, the pottery town a few hours travel north of Tokyo. Hamada needs a great deal of wood ash, the principal ingredient of his traditional glazes, and which many neighbors use to save for him from their daily hearth fires. Hamada's clay also comes from the hills of the town. The Martinez family is acquainted with Shoji Hamada because he and Bernard Leach, the famous British potter, made a visit to San Ildefonso in 1952 with Soetsu Yanagi, the philosopher and founder of the Japanese folk craft movement.
Adam continues, "We have hunted for materials on our land, experimented. You saw the white ash we brought in from our reservation, and it works. But it is so hard to get that we still buy from these other Indians as long as we can. We have to buy the red slip too, for polishing from another pueblo. After we have unloaded the tools and pans, Santana looks over the area and says that this mountain used to be higher, but it is nearly gone. Then she takes some cornmeal from her apron pocket and throws it onto the ground as a blessing for the clay they are about to take. Santana spreads a bright shawl on the ground. Adam drops down on his knees. Pushing aside rocks and sticks, he removes a top crust and smooths the dry area with his hands. The whole deposit has a coarse, even texture, which appears to have washed down from a higher mound. Santana shovels the clay dirt into the fine mesh of the screen. Then she kneels down and begins to shake the dry material through the wire and onto her shawl, where the screen clay collects in a small pile. She tosses the lumps of residue left on the screen over her shoulder. Adam disappears over a hill, and I discover him digging in a different place. He brings back a bucket full of coarser clay, which Santana dumps onto the screen and mixes with the finer particles. The dry clay is still coarse after it is screened, but it seems fine because of the evenly screened particle. The clay Adam brought from a neighboring area seems to have more iron content than the clay in the first.
Usually, it is best to let clay stay wrapped up for a day or so after it is mixed and before it is used. But Santana is going to start right away to build some shapes. Adam goes to the storehouse and returns with several pukis, the fired clay forms in which all pots are begun. He places them in a stack on the table. There is water in a coffee can, a dry cloth for the hands, and the oval-shaped pieces of gourd called cayepes, which are tools used for forming and scraping pots. All paths of life join, say the Tiwa. The origin of these tools is ancient, and variations of the same basic ideas are found in each pot-making society the world has known. The puki is a supporting mold, a dry or fired clay shape in which the round bottom of a new piece can be formed. Coil building with the alkaline clay used at San Ildefonso requires support. A dish or old broken pot would do, but most Indians prefer to make their own supporting molds, each type of pot having a puki of the appropriate shape and size. Probably one of mankind's earliest methods of constructing clay pots thousands of years ago was to use baskets for support. The basket weave left a textured surface which could be smoothed out if the potter wished. It is thought that clay pukis have been used in the Southwest since about 1000 AD.
Indian pot bottoms are customarily round for functional reasons. The round form sits well in the sand or on the rocks of a cook fire. A slightly indented foot conforms to the contours of the head, making the pot useful for the traditional method of carrying water. The gourd shaping ribs and scrapers used by the Pueblo potters vary in size and shape, depending on the job they are used for and the pot being made. Those used by the Martinez family are cut with a hacksaw by Adam from big gourds, along pencil marks he has made on the surface, then filed smooth. These will be soaked in water before use. While we are talking, Santana has been building a jar, a shape about 8 inches wide, bulging at the base, then narrowing in at an angle halfway up. She began with a ball of clay, which she formed into a pancake shape by patting and slinging it rhythmically between her palms. This pancake, she fitted it into the shallow, curved form of the puki, and with thumb and forefinger pushed up a wall about an inch high around the edge. Then she rolled a fat coil between her palms. She attached this to the soft edge of the base. Turning the puki, she squeezed the clay together with her fingers and used one of the gourd ribs to smooth the vertical wall. 2 more coils were added, and the gourd rib was utilized in crisscross motions to make the wall thickness even. Occasionally, Santana patches air holes with small marbles of clay, smoothing the wall and evening the thickness with her gourd as she turns the form slowly in its puki. Then she lets this pot sit and begins another. She will return to it when it is stiffer.
This is not an ordinary clay. In the plastic state, it is thixotropic, which means that it tends to get watery when it is worked. The cause is the highly alkaline volcanic ash that constitutes 50% of the body material. The problem this creates is that the clay can be worked only a little while before the constant action of fingers and tools makes it too soft and impossible to control. Left alone, it will stiffen and can be worked again. Even for small pieces, this is a difficult clay, but for the large pieces, much skill and control are required. When I asked Santana how many pots she makes in a year, she said she does not count. She added that if she had to count, perhaps 100. Usually she works in a series of perhaps 10 pots at a time over a period of 2 weeks. Tall, bulging wide at the base with narrow necks. Short, spherical bowls, a platter or two, and possibly one form of unusual size or shape. Maria has told me that she made many hundreds of pots in a year when she was working at her best. After all, the prices she received were embarrassingly low, and it took a great many pieces to give her an income. Santana has raised twice as many children. Her circumstances have been different from Maria's, and her output has been less. The fact remains that there is a limit to the number of pots possible for one person to make in 1 year the Indian way. The process is simply too complicated. The largest pieces Santana makes, such as the 12 or 14-inch high olla shapes, take 1 day to make if it is a good dry day. Not muggy like this September day, she says. But today, regardless, she did make a big pot. Here's an example of how experience with and feeling for materials allows a craftsman to work successfully, regardless of the adverse conditions. When the finished pieces are dry, usually after a week or two, they are in condition to be scraped and sanded. Santana gathers a group of pots around her on the floor and sits near them on a low stool. Scrapers for finishing pots have historically been sharp edges of such things as sticks or rocks. Nearly every excavation of ancient Pueblo sites yields potsherds with edges ground similar in shape, from which we may assume that even fired clay tools were employed. Some potters utilize knives or pieces of metal for scraping, but this family likes tin lids. Santana and Maria prefer the sharp edge of a Calumet baking powder tin covers, and they scavenge antique shops and yard sales to find them. For the mirror smooth surface on their finished pots, the scraping and sanding process is very important, and going after tin lids becomes a search of significant worth. Typewriter ribbon cases, Scotch tape can lids, and fruit jar lids are also used.
The varying diameters of these fit the curves of particular pots. Only the very edge of the tool must touch the clay in order to smooth rather than gouge. Santana turns the pot on her knee or in her lap as she works. The rhythm of scraping must be constant and even. The roundness of the foot and the seam mark from the puki are scraped first. A narrow tobacco can lid, oval at the ends but with straight sides, is the shape she uses to scrape the interior of the long-necked jars, and a round lid turns the inside lip. Newspapers spread on the floor receive the dry shavings, which will be moistened with water and made into plastic clay again. Nothing is wasted. In their minds, the clay is Mother Earth.
Millie, I'm just wondering, before we go into the next reading, do you want to show that video that Yeva made of Alex and some of Farm Lab team taking the earth and making the clay? Might be.
Absolutely. Let me find it. Bear with me, please. Jen, would you be so kind to allow me to share my screen, please?
And I'll unshare for a moment, right?
Yeah, you have to unshare. It should work, Millie.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm going to play it.
I don't think you're playing the sound. You have to share your sound. When you press share screen, you'll see at the bottom it says share sound.
Give me 1 second.
I can also do it if you want.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see who wins, Lauren.
But just try, if you go to screen share and then like on the bottom left, it says share sound. Do you see that?
Let me try again. Can you hear it?
No.
Maybe you try, Lauren?
Oh. Where'd it go? Wow, now you can hear but not see, right? Good things are worth waiting for. Reading 2, Making and Growing, Chapter 12, Growing Granite. This chapter examines the processes of material growth and transformation implicated in the working of stone. We begin in motion with the movement of a saw through stone and the movement of water over both. Sludge, minute particles of ancient mineral cast off as watery waste, allows us to explore a world in formation, to follow the multiple trails of growth and transformation that converge in this material narrative. Granite sludge concentrates in the quarry at different densities and at different locations. Sometimes the water to granite ration is heavily in favor of the water and the substance moves quickly. At other nodes, concentration of sludge build up over decades. The sludge is at once sad and epic. It is the residual trace of the industrialized dismantling of the granite batholith and the byproduct of the transformation of granite from matter to functional material. Sludge is the product of an accelerated degradation of the granite, where the rock is shunted from its geological slumber into the life cycles of quarrymen and machines. The process of erosion by water and abrasion, which usually occurs over extended timescales, is mechanized and intensified in order to meet the demands of the local building trade. The making of a granite headstone or an ashlar block is not a linear performance. It branches and twists, takes odd paths, and loops back on itself. By analyzing the animated life of sludge, in which the production of the desired discrete granite object is a significant interval, we highlight how specific materials function as components within much larger growing entities. Sludge is more than waste. It is a thing in the making, and the study of it reveals how human making intersects with geophysical making and growing in unpredictable ways. While human making affects change through manipulation and applied labor, geophysical making works through accretion, erosion, pressure, and time. By giving attention and value to the movement of sludge, we are able to track how granite, a material archetype of stony durability, circulates as a dispersed, expansive element within complex life worlds.
In the quarry sump pond, deltas and beaches of sludge gather up and make visible the convergence of cultural process and synthetic geomorphology. They are an emergent landscape feature formed out of the workings of mechanical abrasion, fluid dynamics, gravity, and granular deposition. Granite becomes enrolled in a socioeconomic process driven by the demand for durable material that then allows the residue of production to reconnect with the geological timescales. The sludge slips between natural and cultural registers in its transit and eventual but temporary settlement. Kenilworth Quarry processes several different types of granite, and the masons often rework salvage stone to serve new functions. The local granite, the granite that forms the shear walls rising from the base of the quarry at the sump pit, is buckle and twist. It is a bluey gray, very hard, fine-grained stone. Local masons gave the stone this name because the grain flow frequently shifts directions, much like a contouring grain in a piece of oak. To work the stone cleanly, a sinuous path has to be followed through the material, navigating the history of its formation and deformation in the Cornibium batholith 300 billion years ago. The name buckle and twist still speaks deeply of the relationship between bodies and materials and signals an ongoing process of growing through a condensed history of human matter making, growing knowledge, growing relations, and growing material potentialities. The name speaks of the density of a relationship between human, place, and material over time. It speaks of process.
Unlike the word stone, which fixes a generic identity on the material and is useful primarily as a crude shortcut for the ease of communication, a name like buckle and twist implies a lived material knowledge. The name suggests that a richer and more dynamic set of relations are at play here, which redirects our attention from the materiality of objects to the properties of materials. This is granite, not as inert substance, but as worked matter, generated through recurring encounters between person and stone. A similar expression of relational geology was outlined by Ithel Colquhoun, sorry if I butchered that, in her book, The Living Stones. The life of a region depends ultimately on its geological substratum, for this sets up a chain reaction which passes, determining their character in turn through its streams and wells, its vegetation and animal life that feeds on this, and finally, through the type of human being attracted to live there. Shades of environmental determinism notwithstanding, Colquhoun's writing develops a rich evocation of a person who dwells intensely with a physical landscape. Her use of the phrase attracted to live there suggests a mutual space for intersubjective relations to develop. That is, if one is willing to grant sentience to the landscape itself. The personal and the geological are intertwined and active across time.
Smithson's Asphalt Rundown, Rome, 1969, in which a sheet of asphalt cascades down an exposed earth bank, expresses some of the poetic dialectic between humans and their waste production, as a material associated with industrial road building performs a collaborative event with a scarred geological feature. Waste, as Smithson so eloquently articulates in his work, has a distinctly anthropomorphic disposition, oozing, flowing, bulging, rotting, being subsumed. We thus come to understand a made thing as emerging from a diverse substrate of materials and potentials. Smithson understood that the world of matter and process seeks out but never secures equilibrium, and that from degradation and wasting other forms always materialize. In his pulverizations, he mimicked processes of rock and mineral disintegration, oxidation, hydration, carboniferous states of thought, the shrinkage of mental mud in the geological chaos. Things made are not irrevocably static. They continue to be made, or more specifically, they grow according to the capacities and tendencies of long-term encounters between people and material properties. Both making and growing register deep material exchanges between persons and matter. Where making and growing perhaps diverge is in the notion that making suggests focused working toward the realization of a preordained human design, at which point the making is considered complete. Descriptions of a thing as made, at least in contemporary Western contexts, tend to reduce that thing to an isolated and bounded form, assuming it to be a singular and circumscribed entity that performs in the world only in specific and delimited contexts. Growing, on the other hand, suggests a more than human process unfolding across multiple life cycles and implies that the made thing has potential applications beyond its originally intended function. The design and intentionality embedded in a thing, for example, a granite headstone, is not simply imposed upon its material being. Rather, a thing is animated through the geotemporal properties that people grapple with in the construction of a lived-in environment. Human encounters with matter are porous and cyclic navigations. In this chapter, our investigation of sludge and its journey through the quarry, of the people it has become entangled with, and of the textual speculation it has inspired, suggests that of all the countless products made at Trenneworth Quarry in its 170-year history, have also been grown and continue to grow whether they are built into a structure or silted up at the bottom of a stagnant pond.
Thank you all who read and also listened today. That was beautiful. Clay comes from decomposed rock, minerals, organic matter. Humans have used clay for immemorial times and still use it today. Yet, by treating it as an expendable, anonymous resource, we seem to have forgotten its origin within the natural world. Formlab devised ways to extract clay from what used to be a tow yard. We processed it, made and fired it into oyas, subterranean irrigation pots, and returned it back to the soil that gave birth to it as water vessels. In time, these oyas will eventually break down and return to the soil they were extracted from. Similarly, the studio seeks to responsibly source all of our art materials and to build our tools from our landscape as we champion for the living systems within. Now, Mish, would you be so kind enough to share our guiding questions for today?
So there will be a short prompt followed by two questions. All the things we make, wear, or work with come from somewhere and go back to the soil, atmosphere, rivers, and ocean. What materials do you work with? And how do these practices give back and replenish the life web? And I will post that now in the chat bar.
And at this time, we will all go into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes to discuss this guiding question and anything else that inspired you about the reading. And I'll send a message like halfway through saying time's almost up to kind of wrap up so you're not brought back abruptly. So I'll see you all in 10 minutes.
Enlighten us, everybody.
Well, I had a kind of revelation that most of what I do, music or performance, is just like direct product into other people. There's some paper involved in the music or in scripts and things, but a lot of that is on iPads now. So it's really such an ephemeral product that it kind of made me feel light and full of joy to think that that's what, you know, there is no trash in a way. It's just it's direct, especially like when we do the choir or something and we just arrive with percussion or whatever, and it's just so immediate. So I felt like I got so many karmic points really just in our breakout room.
Well, reversely in our group, we were, reflecting on the question, our practice within Metabolic Studio, and Dee was reminding us that, well, a studio, even though we have a mission, but we champion for the living system, we also have an office, and we consume paper. And I know for a lot of us, it's a struggle. We don't always feel comfortable functioning, with technology and waste. And our hope was that hopefully with the work that FarmLab does, maybe hopefully we offset the waste we produce and the energy we consume. And so it's just fingers crossed. But it's very uncomfortable sometimes to think of your battles and what you want to accomplish, and then realize that, well, you just function within a group and a society, and it's hard to leave your old habits and kind of think in new ways. So that was our discussion.
Boy, I just have to jump back in on that and say that there's so much ephemeral good and inspiration produced by Metabolic Studio, that how do you balance? And of course, want to be mindful of the literal product, but the communication, the practice, the intention is a product too. So it's having no actual scientific data on how much paper or ink is produced. I still think there's something to think about with what is produced in the way of connection and things like this. I mean, there's not much paper involved with what we're doing right now, and there's a spirit running through it. So.
And I also added that, we are always very mindful, and we always try to order like eco-friendly paper. And it was just really hard getting that, during the pandemic and coming, it's still kind of hard. Like when we were trying to order different things for the Pitzer exhibit, it was just like a struggle. And I was just like, I felt bad and awful. I was telling them, and Millie said, well, the work that FarmLab does with the, it offsets what you guys are doing. So that made me feel better. And we don't print a lot. So that everything is basically going like digitally on the office admin side, so that no more paperwork. Coming soon.
Let's just write on the walls with clay. That, like me, I just, get some clay and take a photo of it, send the receipt over to the foundation. They'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
They'll get over it.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think it's like when we start to, I don't even see my full head, we start to do these practices and become unattached to the systems that have been created to exist, you know, as the thing that I find problematic is a lot of the back to the land stuff, but then so much bureaucracy with it. And then it's like, well, we really have to disconnect from the ideas of what that's been like and start a new revolution, you know, to just say no, like Lauren, you just take a picture and you just start doing that, you know, you just write on the wall and you just start doing it. And that's the way it is. So, and yeah, Emily, the cob work, has anyone done cob here? It's amazing, right? And I just learned the Tattlex too, which I love. And that's how I'm going to do my whole house with the Tattlex, you know. But yeah, the cob is so amazing, right? It's beautiful. Michelle, didn't you do that in the time bank too? Back in your place?
Yes, I did, and also made some experiment at when I used to live in Echo Park, and it was also done in the backyard. I mean, I used the biomass and the clay that I found, and I think I would say 90% of the material were from the site, and it was a small garden, so it is possible. There are ways to just go out of not going to Home Depot basically, and be resourceful and mindful. Yes, thank you for reminding me.
I think another product like that is compressed stabilized earth block, which can be done in a modular form. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's kind of similar to Adobe, except for that it does add a little bit of cement. And I think that's really exciting.
Can you say the term again? What's the term?
Compressed stabilized earth block. And so they have this press that you can kind of stamp these out and basically make essentially similar to CMU concrete masonry unit blocks that are modular that you can stack and reinforce with rebar and create structures with. And so that would be a way to manufacture something that could probably go a bit higher than cob, although in both cases, I think there's testing issues for doing it inside the city.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, Ashley. Hey, Lauren, I'm going to put you on the spot. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Will you describe to our community why you chose a clay pipe versus a petroleum-based pipe in the river?
Yes, I will, because when we cut into the concrete of the LA River, I saw that underneath the concrete of the LA River was the sand and the soil and the rocks and the pebbles and the feathers and the seed and the branches of the highlands that surround the LA River. And that when the flood control measure was constructed, they literally just poured concrete on top of 2.3 million year old floodplain, which it's now been dated to. And the reality that anything that I put under the concrete that had to be covered with concrete will one day be a ruin of itself, because everything always returns to the earth. I just couldn't do that without returning earth to earth, and I didn't want to add more microplastics and toxins into the watershed. So I had to take 2 more years to reapply for Army Corps permits because they were unwilling to see that as the same, the same construction material. But we ultimately prevailed, and last year put 300 feet of vitrified clay pipe under the LA River to redirect the flow. And that was really exciting. And the place that supplied us with the pipes, that will again supply us with the pipes this spring when we go back in to finish, is a industry up near Sacramento, near where Kavi lives, called Gladding McBean, which is on a big clay bed. So they don't move all of their materials from some anonymous place to some anonymous place. They have a hole in the ground and they refine every aspect of the pipes there, and anything that breaks, they pulverize and they put right back into the mix. So it isn't without its problems. A vitrified clay pipe means that it's heated at a very high temperature, which adds to heat. It's another process that produces heat. I mean, all processes, all thermodynamics tell you that any work makes heat. This is one of those that does. This seemed to be a better solution than the petroleum-based microplastic standard for engineering practice. Thank you for asking, Millie.
We have a couple of seconds until maybe anyone else have any thoughts.
Yes, I have a thought that I am just so grateful to be able to participate in this and have conversations like this where our disciplines crisscross and open up to bigger, more wonderful things all the time, and that we get to work on something at the same time. It's not seen as a distraction or not paying attention. It's a good use of your time, and this makes it in much better use. I really am grateful, just filled with gratitude for the information and the processing. So thank you, everyone who makes it possible.
Well, shall we share the beaver of the week, Emily? Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Please come back next week. Mish Beard, who is in one of these boxes, will be talking about compost, and we will be reading various excerpts on compost. So thank you again, and we hope you have an incredible evening. Thanks, Emily, for sharing.
Sure thing. Here we go. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Ciao, ciao.
night.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye. Thank you. Rest well.
That beaver of the week. He's so cute.
I'm so in love with these creatures.
Oh,
They just get better and better. Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing how they carry the sludge?
Oh my God, that was my favorite part.
yeah.
That mud face.
Yeah.
Cute.
I wanted to squeeze it.
And those moments of like awareness that they have where they press it in or make a slight adjustment, you know, from moving something from side to side. They're so incredible.
You really are.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here tonight with us, Emily, even when you're at your conference.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
That was really good.
There's so many, I mean, today's day one and the real conference hasn't even started yet, but there's so many cool women at this this gathering. Like this is the feminist vibe is the feminist ecological vibe is really, really exciting.
That is so great. What a great opportunity.
I'm feeling right at home and I'm thinking of you guys and I'm just like, yeah, this is positive. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Well, if you get an opportunity to send people to our Discord.
Oh yeah, will.
I'll send you a link if you're
Please
not
do.
already. Yeah. It'd be
Yeah.
Great to get some of those people on there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will see you guys soon.
Have a wonderful rest of your time and thanks again for that great video.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.